Welcome, everybody, to the Coaching to Flourish podcast. I am your host, John Andrew Williams. Today, it is my honor and pleasure to have Isabeau here. She was one of my participants in my executive coach training course, so it's like years ago now, and has officially passed her ICF certification. Congrats.
Thank you.
Has a coaching practice that focuses on working with ambitious perfectionists. Welcome. Welcome to the Coaching to Flourish podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well, John. I have been looking forward to this conversation and I'm ready to launch.
Me too. Me too. It's been an amazing way to build community, to feel connected. And I feel fortunate for the nudge to get these going and to keep them going. And we found that based on everyone's feedback, what people love the best is to hear stories. And I'm excited to hear yours today on a deeper level and to share with the community. Well, there'll be a time for Q&A at some point towards the end here. We've been aiming for more around a half hour, so maybe we'll go for 20, 25 minutes and then we'll open up for Q&A. But if you have a question in the meantime, please go ahead and put it in there. And then also on the Coach Training EDU blog, there is, there'll be links if you want to learn more about Isabeau and what she's up to. It's there. So let's jump in. First off, I know recently that you gave a presentation to over 500 people virtually.
Yeah.
How was it? What was it like to deliver and have 500 live people there?
Yeah, it was, so we planned this months ago before COVID-19 hit. And I always, whenever I'm doing something, I put quite a bit of effort and thought into it. But as the organizer gave me weekly updates about the number of registrants, I would say that my kind of stress about it mounted because the topic was around leveraging your perfectionism. I am a certified perfectionist. So within, I think it was a few days before this seminar, there was over 800 people registered. I knew there wouldn't be 800 people there. But it was my first webinar. It was my first presentation on perfectionism, and it was like, okay, well, we obviously are just jumping in. So it was such a good practice for me.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did it go? I mean, if you're giving a presentation on perfectionism,
yeah.
I mean, that just feels like a recipe for disaster, like where something is not like right. Was it perfect?
I'm 100% sure it was not perfect. And I could be really like transparent and honest about that. Also shared some stories, definitely disclosed that I'm a perfectionist and, brought in a few personal examples. Lots of positive feedback. A lot of people reached out to me. So it definitely hit a chord with a large number of people. The organizer said she's never had that much feedback either, and engagement. So I think overall it went well.
I feel it even now, like you're just describing it, it feels compelling on just, yes. Like there's something compelling about, being on type, being yourself.
Yeah, very true.
And being vulnerable at the same time and
yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
All of it. So as a perfectionist, like how do you see the world in your work in this world?
I would say I have a lot of empathy for the people I work with because, and I've heard this before, that we attract clients who help us do the work that we need to do. And I very much feel that way, that I can for sure be of support. And I'm also learning from every client interaction that I have, because I see myself reflected in so many of the things that they bring forward.
I love the specialty, by the way. I think this, usually the coaches who are successful, they either specialize in, I work with a certain age, gender demographic, perhaps, or it's they really zero in on a feeling or a time in life. this one is more the, the kind of personality and characteristics that you have, which I think is in some ways my favorite kind of specialty, because you work across. What are you seeing as the common denominators when you work with someone who identifies as a perfectionist, no matter, I mean, across a wide demographic? What do you see as some of the common denominators there?
One is definitely the tendency to set really, really big goals and to not necessarily break them down. So if I'm going to do whatever it is that I'm going to do, people tend to see it as this very, very big task, and sometimes so big that it becomes almost like self-defeating, right? I mean, it's so big, I want it to be so perfect that I'm just not even going to start because I'm completely overwhelmed. So that's one piece of it. And then the other, I would say, common piece is around not having a lot of trouble recognizing strengths. So it's that inclination to see what's at fault, what could have been better, what could have been faster, done differently. And me, as a partial outsider, I am seeing all these signs of progress and things worth celebrating. And it's, bringing that to people's attention. But I have found that people who are ambitious perfectionists kind of like, oh yeah, well, that thing, let's move on, and it's really like, let's pause here. Let's take a look at this. Yeah.
It's almost like the brain is wired to like just assume successes are so easy and then to focus only on the flaws.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't even know that it's assuming success is easy. It's thinking of success as something so big that one doesn't recognize the small successes along the way to the bigger goal.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
I am not a perfectionist, as you know, as we've had conversations about.
I would agree.
What's your message to us non-perfectionists? Like, what do we need to know?
No, the message is to perfectionists, actually. The message is learn from these people, learn from them.
I wish I could be more like you, though. I wish I had more of a, no, it's really, I think at my best, I have a small slice. I have a 2%.
I'm sure.
But in the large realm, what would you really say to non-perfectionists? Like, just if we were to understand perfectionists better, what would be your message to us?
If I weren't a perfectionist and were having regular contact with someone like myself, I would probably find that person intolerable and difficult. So I would say to those who are interacting with perfectionists to please remember it comes from a good place, and to help that person see or articulate their intentions, maybe in different ways. That would be probably the key. The key is remembering that it comes from a good place.
I think, speaking on behalf of non-perfectionists, I just want to say we're sorry for our mistakes and we'll try harder next time. That's my message. That's what I feel in my heart.
No, I think it's, that I have found it challenging to work with you because we've talked about it, but it's so good for me. Right? It's so good for me to be working with different personalities. It's necessary.
I feel like this conversation here is a huge win for both of us. It's like, I was telling the team, like, we're doing this. And I know that even in the transition, when the training materials, which had typos, in the previous edition, which we've now since remedied based on feedback. It's kind of like, flying an airplane and building it too. I was once, I'm a humble former high school teacher who started it. We don't have, huge financial investors helping us with life coaching. But here we are. But this next edition became better based on feedback. And, we really, this next one, I'm really psyched about. And I feel like it's a win for both of us. Here we are, right? What is but let's shift gears a little bit. I want to get more into your story too. Where did you grow up? And how did it influence who you are today?
I'm one of the rare folks who was born in Vancouver, raised in Vancouver. A lot of people that I meet here are folks who come to Vancouver. So I was born and raised in Vancouver, Canada. I'm an only child. Both my parents were university professors. So kind of paints a little bit of a picture of what my upbringing may have been like. It was quiet, it was serious. Both my parents were very, very hardworking people. They didn't come from academic backgrounds. My father's from Pakistan, from a very, very poor upbringing and village. And my mother was raised by the nuns in a kind of working class family. So that was my life. It was me with my parents, who were both fairly taken by their careers. And I did a lot of reading. I had close friends. I had a cat that I loved. But I think, I grew up very comfortable with being with my thoughts and being on my own to some degree. I mean, I had close friends, so it wasn't like I was a lonely only child. It was just that I didn't have siblings. It was, I guess, maybe a more serious type of environment.
Yeah, I can imagine having two parents too who, in a lot of ways, made it. Right here they are, like professors in Canada. That's a big deal. It's a really big deal.
Yeah.
What was your first initial reaction when you heard the words life coach?
Well, I first heard about coaching when I was in my mid-20s. And it was probably at the very, very beginning of the coaching industry. And I was had a short stint doing a DJ disc jockey business with my partner. And I met a woman, her partner was doing this training to become a coach, had no idea what it was. She said, he's looking for practice clients, could help you with business development. I knew nothing about business. I had like zero understanding of what that was. I was like, sure, any help I can get, fabulous. And he was outstanding. He was just amazing in his ability to ask questions and listen. So that was my first experience with coaching, was as a coachee when I was quite young.
So you were also a DJ like that?
No.
You were a DJ?
No, my partner was a DJ. I was the business developer.
Oh, okay.
And,
I was going to get, what?
Yeah.
He's a DJ? Like what? That would be so, wow. That would be wow.
No, but we did do dancing together, like as part of the DJ business. We would teach dancing and do performances.
Super cool. So you were a client of coaching back at the very beginning of it.
At the very beginning. And
that's a big deal.
And then my next encounter with coaching was again as a client in a work environment where somebody brought in a coach to do like a half-day workshop with us. And I did a little bit of coaching with that woman after. So that's how I got introduced to coaching.
Wow. And so what was the leap into training?
The leap to training, I would say, was a number of different factors. One is that where I work part-time, the University of British Columbia has an unbelievable coaching program, an organizational coaching program, where as staff, we can avail of coaches. So I started to do that and had repeatedly had good experiences. Then I was lucky enough to have a manager who was training to become a life coach, and she was phenomenal as well. So then my real entry into it was when I became a Gallup certified coach. And that was kind of when I had decided I'm going to get certified in this tool and I'm going to start a practice.
That's great. In
Mm-hmm.
Canada, I mean, Vancouver, you know Windsor House? It's a,
Yes, yes, school.
yeah, so that
Yeah.
was the second, Windsor House is either the first or second school. There's another school, Eagle Hill in Massachusetts. It was around the same time. Those are the two first schools where the complete faculty was trained. And it
I
was in
did
British
not know
Columbia.
that.
Yeah, Windsor House.
Because I have a friend
Yes.
who works at Windsor House.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to ask her
Was it
about it.
Tina Marie?
Nope.
Yeah. So I went through a leadership program with Tina Marie,
Okay.
who was basically hired to be the full-time coach for all the students. Canada is extremely progressive with coaching.
Huh. I did
I've
not
been
know that.
impressed with some of the things that they have, especially in the education sphere. I think there was a period of time, I don't know where it is now, but I know a couple of years ago that there were a couple of things that were being looked at nationwide for coaching and education in Canada. I don't think it went, but I haven't been keeping up on it as much. You're in the right spot. You're
Excellent.
You're doing it. What was most surprising when in the training?
The initial training
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
or the
Gallup
training
and
with you?
both the Gallup training and the coach training EDU. What were the surprising things about coach training?
I think what did surprise me? The Gallup training was very short, and that is why I actually picked it, because I felt that the biggest challenge for me would not be learning about coaching. It would be the business piece of it. So with Gallup, I'd say one of the biggest surprises has been how international it is, the phenomenal support for coaches that is available to keep us engaged with that tool and with that community. With the coach training EDU, I made the decision to become ICF certified about a year after, or maybe a year and a half after I had done the Gallup certification. And I wanted to be sure that I had the gumption to persevere with respect to business, because that does continue to be the most challenging piece. As someone who's got a lot of education, I have a lot of confidence around my abilities to learn, but the business piece is still the piece where I feel like I've got the longest way to go. I mean, still obviously with coaching too, but so the surprising piece was, I think, around, I really, really liked the format of the extended coach training as opposed to doing it in a few weekends or really condensed pockets of time. And I thought very carefully, and I investigated thoroughly my options before selecting coach training EDU. And as someone who's fairly impatient, I wasn't sure how doing the training over a long period of time would fit, but I ended up choosing that because it worked with my lifestyle the best. And I was really delighted with that. It was very supportive. That wasn't a surprise. I mean, I didn't expect that to be different. Yeah, that's kind of what sticks out right now.
Right. I think that was one thing that was surprising for me as well, because there was a period of time when we did in-person weekend workshops.
Aha.
And we found that the participants who did the once a week for 2 hours, 6 months, they just were like better equipped. Their skill sets were better than the same number of hours condensed in 3 weekends.
Interesting. Yeah, I found that there was so much opportunity to incorporate
Right.
what we were learning. I found the pace relaxed. It really worked well for me.
Right. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, even if we space those weekends out a month, 3 months, even the 3 month equivalent of once a week is better. It's like half of the virtual training was, you got a better result than, in person.
Yeah.
That's there.
I'll say another thing that surprised
Right.
me. I mean, I had both you and Hayden as my trainers, and you were very, very different in your approaches. And I would
Right.
say that was great to have the multiple perspectives and different approaches, both in the overviews and in the training.
Hayden is one of your fellow perfectionists. He's a perfectionist with a performer in the core motivation world.
Right.
But he's just a lovely individual.
He is. Yeah.
What advice would you have for a new coach? Someone just starting out.
Yeah. Don't wait to get it right. That's really the biggest advice, is jump in, reach out to people. Don't assume that they know what coaching is, though.
Mm-hmm. You also did the Biz Launcher, which I know, which I led, and it started at an odd time in this world.
Yeah.
What was your biggest takeaway from the Biz Launcher?
The power of reaching out. So you encouraged us right at the beginning to reach out to our classmates and make connections and coach one another as it related to whatever piece of our business that we wanted to work on. And when I did the 1.0, the executive, I think unless there was an assignment, I didn't really reach out. I don't think I was doing reciprocal coaching with my classmates, but with the Biz Launcher, I did reach out right away and had regular reciprocal coaching conversations, and it was fabulous.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing to me. I'm reminded every time I have my own coaching session. Like, wow, this stuff works. Like, it's as if we're steeped in it, but it's still every other week. I'm still at the end of the call. I think wow, like that was amazing. Like, why couldn't I have thought of that myself?
Right, right. Another piece of advice for any coach or new coach would be like always be getting coached. Yeah,
right.
There's so much to be learned by being a client of coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When I go shopping for a new coach, I'm terrible. I mean, I just have to lay it all out. I said, listen, this is just so you know what you're getting into.
Exactly. Yeah.
I feel like every coach who's been coach trained has, different, like your benchmark for coach, changes too.
Yeah.
So what do you have going on right now? How can this community best support you? What do you have? I know we have a workshop scheduled.
Yeah.
Programs launching.
So what this year, 2020, is about for me is about being visible. And I realized at the end of 2019 that though I was really committed to my coaching practice, I was committed in a very quiet way, meaning that I was doing my thing, I was writing my newsletters. Writing is a very comfortable sphere for me, but it became too comfortable in that I felt like I needed to do things in front of people, and that was going to be my goal for 2020. So when you offered this opportunity or workshops, and I've been looking out for other opportunities and taking them or creating them, that's what I have in store for more of this year. So if there are any folks out in the community who either want to collaborate on a workshop or any kind of other public engagement, I'm happy to talk and hear from people. Yeah.
Oh, this is fabulous. I have a couple in mind, actually. There are a couple projects that are happening with universities. I'm thinking, I wonder what it would be like to get Isabeau in here for, an hour and,
Yeah.
speaking to like NYU students or something, something
I'm
we can
happy to talk. Yeah. I just think
get.
it's so good for me.
It's compelling. Seriously, when you were talking about your specialty of working with ambitious perfectionists and what that is, and the
Yeah.
idea of, the common challenges, that to me, I think it's coaching at its best, because what you're doing is you're using coaching skills and tool sets, but you're applying it to a really specific audience. And there's going to be some expertise or some guidance that you gain from working with that audience. You put that into a coaching container. That's so valuable. That is so powerful. And that's where I see the future of this profession going, or more people are going to be specialized in niche like you, to really be viewed as experts in this sphere. Isabel, it really is a pleasure to have you here. Like I've been looking forward to this one, especially I know you were in my class, and here we are. What's your workshop? Do you have a workshop next week? Is it in 2 weeks?
Yeah. It is June 3rd,
Okay.
and it will be geared at folks who have perfectionist tendencies and find that those get in the way of them meeting their goals or even making progress towards their goals. And I've really been working on what I call a positive approach to perfectionism, because I feel that perfectionism is so often depicted as a really debilitating characteristic, which it is. So I don't disagree with that. And I also think that there are ways that we can use our perfectionist tendencies to support ourselves. So that is really the angle that I'm taking in that workshop. And because I am fairly goal driven, the focus is on using that towards achieving your goals.
I love it. I love this on so many levels, looking at perfectionism as a strength, like leveraging perfectionism. Just that concept alone, like just the title gives value to people. Like, I love that.
Thank you.
It's the perfect title.
I don't think I came up with it. Nor was I the person who noticed that I work with ambitious perfectionists. It took somebody else to say, there seems to be a theme here. You know? Sometimes we're so close to it, we don't see it.
Well, it's what I get excited about on a deeper level too, is that this idea, and I know I've mentioned it before in other podcasts, where I don't know of any more robust program of personal development than to try to be an entrepreneur.
Oh, agree.
I mean, it's brutal.
I agree.
You are faced with, you are battling every day.
Yep.
Your weaknesses come out in sharp relief, one way or another.
They do. Yeah.
And what's also fun about it is that I feel like coach training helps grow you as well. Like, I don't know of any other training that also so aligns with personal growth.
Yep.
The two together are really powerful. What would be your advice to someone who is thinking about it's time to start a coaching practice?
I think, and I'm speaking from my own experience, that there's something really compelling about being called to do something and listening to that. And I found that I had fairly fixed notions about what I thought launching my own coaching practice would look like. And that got in the way initially. So I would say that I would encourage that person to go forward. And I would also say, do the work to stay open to what that journey is going to look like. Because I imagine that if I had stayed attached to what I thought it was going to look like, I would have gotten discouraged very, very quickly. But by staying open, it's allowed me to continue and to grow steadily.
That's lovely. We have a question too. We have a question.
Right.
And the question is, do you agree that perfectionism leads to procrastination? And what are your thoughts, Isabeau, in this respect?
Well, that's so funny that that person asked, because I'm writing a blog post at the moment that needs to be submitted by Friday on this very, very topic. So if that person wants to reach out to me, I'll send them the link to the blog post once it gets published, because it won't be appearing on my blog initially. So yes, I think that the relationship is that the perfectionist has so much anxiety around what the project or task is going to entail, and then also has such high standards that then fear sets in, and procrastination or doing other things becomes the easier route temporarily.
Right.
But then, of course, that brings in a whole bunch of shame and self-criticism.
Yeah, that makes it hard.
Yes.
What is that link between, or what do you see most often breaks patterns of procrastination and perfectionists?
I would say the ability to have self-compassion.
Mm.
I would say that combined with acceptance, and those are big, right? Those are lifelong projects.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's heart work, right? It's that deep heart-centered work. There was a book I was reading or I was looking at blog posts or summary of a book, and the author talked about how time management is not necessarily about managing or scheduling time. It's about pain management.
Mm.
And it's about being at peace with, this project is hard. I want to stop, or I don't want to look at this thing, but that's the real management. It's not scheduling. And what you're saying reminds me very much of that. It's, the outward action aligns with the outward results align with how well you're also handling your inner world like that.
Yeah, because if it becomes about to-dos and managing, your task list differently, it is so temporary, temporary. But your question was around the pattern, and I think that that's where the deep work around self-compassion and acceptance. And acceptance, I think what triggers perfectionists sometimes when one uses the word acceptance is they think, well, if I accept this, then, then it's like the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm never going to get anything done, but it's not. Acceptance doesn't mean lack of change. And I think that's sometimes a hard contradiction for people to get their heads wrapped around.
I can see where those two things get collapsed in the busyness.
Yeah.
Right. All right, we have another question here. What brings you joy?
Oh, so many things. Being with I have two teenagers. I have a almost 19-year-old, which I almost probably doesn't even consist of a teenager anymore. And
why not? We'll stretch that one.
Today he's still 18, and a 15-year-old. So I love spending time with my teens. That's one thing. The other thing that brings me joy is hiking. For me, that's my spiritual connection, being in the outdoors. there's many other things, including reading, being physically active, some of those things, helping people. Yeah.
Right. Isabeau, this is a great place to stop. It's been, I can't tell you how filled my heart feels with joy, and just, I admire so much. I mean, I see your perfectionism and where you're at as a strength, 100% strength. And I just want to say I really admire how much, like, the journey you and I've went through in this past year and everything. Just thank you for that. Thank you for being a part of this community. And I just, like, when I hear you talk about your specialty, what you're here to do, who you're working with and how you're working with them, like, you are so compelling, and it just comes across as so powerful and compassionate and empathetic and all of that. I just want to hear you keep talking about those things. I know you're doing what you're meant to be doing in this world, this life. I feel it. And thank you for that. Thank you for being the gift and sharing it generously with us today.
Thank you so much, John. We'll soak those words in.
And we get more. So we have a workshop coming up. It'll be on the blog.
Yep.
We have another one of these conversations on Thursday. I think it's going to be with our trainer, Jen. And thank you. Thank you, audience. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all of those listeners to the podcast afterwards. It's exciting to see this podcast get some traction. And if you want to find out more, go to the Coach Training EDU blog. My name is John Andrew Williams. I'm your host for the Coach and Flourish, and we had Isabeau here as my guest. Thank you for watching and listening.
Thank you.